as we look at maybe the Israelites, like going back to Genesis during that period when it was written, would would we say that Jews were monotheists or that they had like a they believed in multiple gods? Because I think even within the commandment of like you shall have no other gods before me, maybe infers that there are these other gods that are around, but I am the one God. I was wondering if maybe you can kind of comment on polytheism versus monotheism in the early kind of tribal nations of Israel.
There was some slippage in your question between the Bible and ancient Israelites that I think it's really important for your listeners to understand. The Bible is an ancient Israelite text. There are not a whole lot of other ancient Israelite texts that are preserved from this particular period, but it's like taking a single American text. This represents America. Now, what text do you want to choose? Do you want to choose Faulkner? Do you want to choose Thomas Wolfe? Do you want to choose Salinger? I mean, each of those texts is going to represent a very different cross-section of America. So the Bible represents a cross-section, which I'm going to call somewhat tautologically biblical Israel. Ancient Israel was much broader than biblical Israel in its beliefs. We largely know this on the basis of archaeological information and various types of polemics that you have in the Hebrew Bible itself. So I would not, number one, I would not generalize from biblical Israel to all of ancient Israel, where I'm sure that ancient Israel was much more polytheistic than biblical Israel was. But secondly, given that the Bible is a collection, or even the Hebrew Bible is a collection, or essentially even a collection of collections of collections, it has a tremendous amount of diversity in it. So there are some texts which are, let me call them, very monotheistic. The late Tikva Brimmer-Kensky used to call them, talk about radical monotheism in these texts. One of them in Deuteronomy, actually soon it will be the end of the festival of Sukkot. This is a verse from Deuteronomy recited during Simchat Torah, the rejoicing of the law part at the end of Sukkot. Atah ho'ita ladat ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim ein od bilvado. It was proven to you to know that God, that the Lord is the God. There are no others beside him. Okay, that is a super duper radical monotheistic, let's look it up, sorry, Deuteronomy 4:35 is what that is. On the other hand, you have texts like in the Song of the Sea, in Exodus chapter 15, verse 11, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you among the gods, O Lord. Now, different translations fudge that, like they'll say, but among the celestials and so forth. But clearly that is a text that is assuming that there are a variety of deities. I mean, the word that is used is El, which is a standard word in biblical Hebrew for a god with a lowercase g. But it is assuming that even though there's a multiplicity of deities, the God of Israel is incomparable. And by the way, many biblical texts suggest that it is just fine for non-Israelites to worship other gods. And thus the way you quoted from the Decalogue or the Ten Commandments, it's not at all surprising that that should acknowledge the presence of other deities. So, as to summarize, because that was a long answer to a short question, sorry about that. The Bible, the Hebrew Bible itself, has a diversity of views concerning monotheism and extents of monotheism within it. And if you move from the Hebrew Bible to ancient Israel, be careful not to generalize and to assume that everyone in ancient Israel, was walking around with their Hebrew Bible. And that was their textbook for belief at that point.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out this video clip from the Delgado podcast. To get more videos like this, simply subscribe here on YouTube. You can also download the full episode of each show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or your favorite podcast player. Take care.